It was one of those bitterly cold December afternoons in downtown Chicago where everything felt heavier than usual, not just the freezing air, but the weight of life itself. The snow was turning to dirty slush on the sidewalks, and despite the bustling streets, there was a strange silence between strangers. I had just left a long business meeting, one that had ended with a firm and final rejection of my startup proposal. It wasn't the first rejection. It was the fifth that week. My savings were nearly gone. My car was unreliable. My dreams were starting to feel like illusions, and I hadn't told my family back in Kansas how bad things had really become. I was too ashamed to admit that I was barely surviving on peanut butter sandwiches and sleepless nights. As I waited at a crosswalk, hands buried in the pockets of a worn-out coat that didn't stand a chance against the icy wind, my eyes fell on a man standing near the corner. He was holding a cardboard sign that read, "Anything helps." God bless you. He looked to be about my age, maybe 30, but hardship had added years to his face. His beard was uneven, his shoes held together with duct tape, and his fingers were raw and red from the cold. But what caught me most were his eyes, calm, kind, and strikingly peaceful. I didn't have any cash to give, but I did have a sandwich left in my backpack and a half-full bottle of water. I hesitated. I debated turning the corner and walking away, but something in me wouldn't let that happen. I approached him and said, "Hey, you hungry?" He turned to me, smiled without hesitation, and said, "Always, brother." Brother. That word hit deeper than I expected. No one had called me that in a long time, not with warmth. Not like that. I handed him the sandwich and water. "It's not much," I said, feeling embarrassed. He looked at it like it was gold. "It's everything right now," he said. "What's your name?" "Daniel," I replied. "I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand. His grip was surprisingly firm, human, alive. "Thank you, Daniel. You didn't just walk past." That matters. We stood there and talked for a bit. I told him I just had another business pitch turned down. I expected him to shrug or maybe just nod along. Instead, he listened, really listened. Then he said, "You know, people think I'm here because I messed up. Drugs, laziness, bad decisions. But life can flip in an instant. I had a job, a wife, a little girl, a drunk driver ended all that. And then I stopped caring. I lost everything." My heart sank. "I'm sorry." "I don't need your pity," he said gently. "I just need people to treat me like I still matter. Like you just did." We stood in silence for a moment. Then he added, "Don't give up on your dreams. Don't let failure make you forget your worth." Those words stayed with me like a tattoo on my soul. Before leaving, I gave him my gloves. He resisted at first, but I insisted. As I walked away, he shouted, "When your business takes off, remember this moment." I didn't look back. I couldn't. My eyes were already stinging. Weeks passed. I couldn't stop thinking about him. Every day that I got up, worked on my plan, sent another email, or heard another rejection, I remembered his words. Don't let failure make you forget your worth. Eventually, I landed a small investor, just enough to get the engine running. I rented a tiny space, set up my laptop, and built version 1 of my software. It wasn't beautiful, but it worked. Slowly, I started getting clients. Money trickled in. Life didn't feel like drowning anymore. It felt like swimming upstream, but at least I wasn't sinking. One morning, I retraced my steps, walking by the same corner I had met Marcus. But he wasn't there. I asked around. A guy at the coffee shop said, "Yeah, he used to stand there. Haven't seen him in weeks. Real decent guy." I felt something close to loss. I had wanted to thank him, to tell him his words worked, that he was right. 6 months later, my company signed its first big contract. I was on my way to grab coffee when I saw someone I couldn't quite place sitting by the train station. He wore a clean blue shirt with a shelter's logo on it. Then I saw the smile dot. It was Marcus. He looked different, clean-shaven, eyes brighter, posture straighter. "Marcus?" I said. "Daniel?" He replied with the same warm smile. We hugged like long-lost brothers. "I looked for you," I said. "You changed my life," he laughed. "You changed your life. I just reminded you who you were." He told me he had entered a community program not long after we met. They helped him get back on his feet, therapy, housing, and eventually, purpose. Now he volunteers full-time, helping others get off the streets. He said that small acts of kindness had a way of planting seeds, and sometimes they bloom into whole forests. I looked at him and said, "You called me brother that day, but to me, you were my angel." He didn't say anything, just smiled, eyes misty. We stood in silence, knowing something sacred had just been exchanged. A year later, Marcus is part of my team. I offered him a job not out of pity, but because he has a gift. He connects with people in ways I never could. He now leads our community outreach initiative, helping at-risk youth and the homeless find resources, jobs, and hope. At every public event, when someone asks how our company got started, I tell them this story. They're always surprised. "You met on the street?" They ask. I smile and say, "He called me brother. I called him my angel." Turns out we were both right. You never know what a simple act of kindness can become. Sometimes it changes a day. Sometimes it changes a life. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it changes two.